gente la están dejando salir ahora que ya ven que más o menos está controlada la situación. Hay otro dato importante es que la Policía Federal de Caminos, algunos elementos están aquí debido a que su estación o su corporación está estacionada aquí a media cuadra del Hotel Camino Real. Otro dato de este.
The narco underworld spans over 4 decades. Throughout this time, many horrific atrocities have transpired, all in the pursuit of riches and glory. In today's video, I want to bring to your attention some of the most disturbing topics I have come across. So without further ado, let's begin. Around 12 kilometers west of the vibrant city of Guadalajara resided El Bosque de la Primavera, known for its rich landscape and vast array of wildlife. During the 1980s, however, it was home to evil. Back then, men like Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, Rafael Caro Quintero, and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo dominated the underworld through corruption, using their DFS contacts for protection against pretty much anything. Of course, when all else failed, violence was their favorite solution. Deep within the cartel's infrastructure existed a death squad of sorts. Oftentimes, this squad was used by high-ranking members to carry out hits and to dispose of bodies at El Bosque de la Primavera. That was their sole purpose. This group is only referred to as Los Tormidos. One example that we can compare them with is the DeMeo crew over in Brooklyn, New York. Whenever the Gambinos needed someone gone, they would leave it to the crew operating out of the Gemini Lounge to take care of it. After their famous process of the Gemini method, they would leave whatever was left of their victim over at the Fountain Avenue dump. Their makeshift burial site was how they were able to evade law enforcement for so long. No body, no crime. Now, during the research of this video, I had a little trouble finding anything that pertains to identifying this group. The little I could find were just quick references to them in books, but it gives little information on who they were exactly. That was until I came across this Reddit post by user FitBottle1510, in which he goes into some inconsistencies he found within the documentary The Last Narc. See, if you watch the Last Narc documentary, it is stated that El Chapo was head of Los Tormidos during the era of the Guadalajara cartel, but our poster uncovered something that says otherwise. They found that it was not El Chapo that led this elusive group, but instead Los Torres Ochoa. He uncovered this via old DEA documents, which he leaves a link to in his post. Now, clicking on this link takes us to a saved screenshot of a DEA file that contains a confidential informant's testimony pertaining to the Camarena case. This CI states that he had been very close with Los Tormidos through his time working under the Guadalajara cartel. He then goes on to actually name one of those Tormidos, identifying Juan Torres Ochoa. The informant in these documents even attested to the fact that Los Tormidos had some involvement with the torture of Enrique Camarena, or were at least present for it, as during one occasion, Juan Ochoa would tell the CI about an incident between Quintero and Fonseca that he witnessed. To quote the CI, Juan Torres Ochoa told me that Camarena had been taken to Rafa's house, that Rafa had tortured him, that Ernesto had gotten very angry, that Ernesto didn't think they were going to kill him, that he tried to get a doctor for him to keep him from dying. Rafa's people had finished him off in spite of that. In an effort to find more about Los Tormidos, I noticed the web address that this form came from, that being reneverdugo.org. Rene Verdugo was accused of being involved with the kidnapping and killing of Enrique Camarena. The website I just mentioned contained a lot of documents like the ones previously shown that were utilized during his trial back in the 90s. Though attempting to put the address into the search bar reveals that the website is no longer up. Fortunately, using the Wayback Machine, we were able to actually visit the website and access further documents. Unfortunately, the only other thing that I could find about this now defunct group was this DEA form from August 28th, 1992. This form was a simple list of who the SOI that was interviewed could identify via photos provided by officers. Photograph 6. SOI positively identified this subject as one of Los Tormidos and one of Belardo's people. Of course, though, we cannot see what photographs they are referring to, as they are not included in this document. Whether this photograph was of Juan Ochoa or another one of Los Dormidos is not known. As for what actually became of Los Dormidos is also unknown. Most of the people involved in this group, including members like Juan Torres Ochoa, are probably in prison or dead. Though when looking back at the atrocities this group committed, Los Tormidos had filled El Bosque de la Primavera with over 100 bodies. Many of them have never been located.
This is where some of Mexico's most vicious drug lords take their enemies, behind that fence, back into this peaceful forest. This is where they dig their graves and kill them and bury them.
Officials of the DEA in Washington think that there may be at least 100 bodies back here. They call this Guadalajara's killing field. Do you think there could be 100 bodies back here?
Yes, I think is correct.
Luis.
Throughout El Chapo's reign as one of the leaders of the Sinaloa cartel, he had developed an obsession, specifically with young teenage girls ranging from 13 to 14 years old. When El Chapo was extradited to the US for a trial in New York, a once trusted associate of his would become a key witness for the prosecution side. His name was Alex Cifuentes, a former trafficker who was active during the days of the super cartels over in Colombia. But as the late 2000s came around, he would become quite close to El Chapo. During his days serving El Chapo, he witnessed how he would contact someone named La Comadre Maria. This person was in charge of a trafficking ring. Their identity is not known, though what is known is that she would charge El Chapo $5,000 for a girl who was the age of a middle schooler. After the transaction was complete, they were taken to wherever he was hiding out. Most of the time, it was just some shitty ranch that El Chapo was staying at. Cifuentes recalled the girls taken there were drugged by an unknown substance that was discreetly poured into their drinks before being handed over to them, leaving the victims in a vulnerable state because of this substance. El Chapo would take advantage of them while they were in this state. Cifuentes and other associates of El Chapo would also participate on various occasions. El Chapo would do this an unknown amount of times, though what is certain is that he would get in contact with La Comadre Maria quite regularly. El Chapo would describe these encounters as his vitamins to his associates, even stating that they brought him some sort of life. El Chapo would never be charged for these crimes. His lawyer, Eduardo Valareso, would later state, Joaquin denies these allegations, which lack any corroboration and were deemed too prejudicial and unreliable to be admitted at trial. Sadly though, this story only highlights a bigger issue in Mexico, and that is human trafficking. According to an article on InsideCrime.com, Mexican authorities identified at least 550 victims of human trafficking in 2020, a 43% increase from the 383 victims recorded in 2016. This data showcases the alarming rate that human trafficking is growing at in Mexico, an issue that is often overlooked by the media. But the most disturbing part about the alarming rate that human trafficking is rising at is brought up in the same article. Quote, children between the ages of 5 and 12 were victims of and as well as being forced to beg on behalf of others. Children are one of the most targeted groups by traffickers. They are taken away from their families without reason and either put into hard labor or rings that people like El Chapo had access to, a majority of them being young girls. In the present day, cartels have expanded to more things rather than just drug trafficking, one of them being CP, which, if you didn't know, brings in about $7 billion annually. Human trafficking and CP have become just another one of their day-to-day operations. The government itself doesn't seem to be doing much to help either, as evident by the exponential rise in cases. As of now, Mexico is still considered a Tier 2 country when it comes to combating these issues. In 1994, the Arellano Felix family was on the run from law enforcement after the failed attempt to murder Joaquin Guzman at the Guadalajara airport in May 1993, which claimed the lives of 6 people. After the airport shooting, the AFO sent 2 of their hitmen to turn themselves in to promptly shift and Ibrahim away from them, along with a $10 million bribe. This allowed them to have a brief window to escape from Tijuana. Prominent members like Benjamin and Ramon went into hiding since even with the 2 hitmen turning themselves in, they still had a lot of heat on them. In December 1993, AFO sent over hitmen to take out Amado Carrillo Fuentes while he was dining at a restaurant with his family. They almost got him, but one of his guards named El Metro took a page out of David Baron's playbook and single-handedly held them off so that Amado and his family could escape. But while this was a bold move by the Arellanos to take out a big player in the underworld, their most brazen attack was yet to come. On the night of June 11th, 1994, a thunderstorm was ravaging through the area of Guadalajara. A strike of lightning had struck down on some electrical transformers, heavily damaging them, which caused a blackout in certain parts of Guadalajara. El Camino Real Hotel was in one of these affected areas. That Saturday night, it was the location of Karime Fernandez's quinceañera, a day that many girls in Mexican culture dream about. Though unfortunately for her father was Luis Enrique Fernandez Uriarte. He was in the business, but he wasn't the intended target for the AFO. See, Luis was connected to high-profile figures in Sinaloa, and the AFO saw this as the perfect opportunity to strike. And sure enough, on the long invitation list, one name stuck out above the rest. That was Ismael Zambada Garcia, El Mayo. That was who the AFO wanted. Outside on the wet streets of the hotel, a Grand Marquis pulled up to the hotel with 2 assailants inside of it. The 2 being Guillermo Gomez Chavez, El Boni, and Marcial Gonzalez Muñiz. The 2 men were sent there on orders from the AFO with a bomb that they had somehow gotten their hands on. It was later uncovered to be 10 to 22 pounds of a specific plastic explosive that was, quote, a commercial type mainly sold to mining companies. The plan was to smuggle in the explosives as one of the many presents of Karime. Though unbeknownst to the 2 assailants in the car, a chain reaction caused the bomb to go off prematurely inside the car, killing them and 3 other innocent people outside. 15 other people in the area were also injured. The blast shook the entire city of Guadalajara as people who were blocks away were awoken by the shattering of glass from the shockwave. When emergency services arrived, they witnessed the horrors. 2 heads pertaining to the dead were located in the rubble, along with other severed limbs.
Y a la gente la están dejando salir ahora que ya ven que más o menos está controlada la situación. Hay otro dato importante es que la Policía Federal de Caminos, algunos elementos están aquí debido a que su estación o su corporación está estacionada aquí a media cuadra del Hotel Camino Real. Otro dato de este asunto, decía Griselda Torres que se trataba de un Chrysler rojo, pero al parecer es un Cutlass de color tinto. Es lo que estamos tratando de ver porque el carro quedó despedazado y solamente vemos una parte del chasis junto a un camión del grupo que mencionaban de los huracanes. Por lo pronto hay un gran desconcierto adentro del Hotel Camino Real y aquí las autoridades todavía no se atreven a dar una versión de los hechos, pero la explosión hay que aclarar.
The AFL would never face any consequences for this horrific crime, though karma would eventually catch up with them.
Félix, uno de los narcotraficantes mexicanos más buscados por los Estados Unidos, fue declarado hoy oficialmente muerto. Según las autoridades mexicanas, lograron comprobar que el cadáver hallado hace unos días en Mazatlán, Sinaloa, corresponde a quien fue uno de los más buscados jefes del cartel de Tijuana.
Y por otra serie de elementos, evidencias físicas, se ha podido determinar que Jorge Pérez López es Ramón Arellano Félix.
A Ramón Arellano Félix se le atribuyen más de 1,000 muertes, entre ellas el asesinato de un cardenal de la ciudad de Guadalajara en mayo de 1993.
Had the bomb gone off as intended, over 300 people would have perished in the ensuing blast.